So, when we last talked to you, it was at the end of the transfer window, and you had basically expressed confidence that this group would be able to get it done. How are you feeling right now?
I feel good about that, obviously, but there's two ways that story could have gone. And I also at the time expressed that we had several players that were going to be expected to perform at a higher level.
Yeah.
So that wasn't a conversation where it was everything's perfect.
Right.
It was that the expectations were a little bit higher for this group. But on the back end of it, the confidence that we have and have had consistently throughout the year in these guys, and they started to reward themselves a little bit more. They started to take advantage of opportunities a little bit more. Just like anyone, I think we would say that every team wants to score a little bit more. Makes all of these things easier, but the work that the players and the staff put in the second half of the year equaled the first half. The results started to show a little bit more with, I think, probably a few more moments of discipline throughout each match. So a good reward for the group, for what they've done. And I've always questioned people like myself standing in front of groups and taking credit for other people's work. I don't play on Saturdays. I don't think any of you have seen me out there on a Saturday yet. I don't remember being out there on a Saturday. So really, really proud of what they've done.
You mentioned the veterans that you were hoping to, or you were kind of putting some pressure on to step up. Overall, how do you think those players did?
I think defensively, we've been good all year, and the leadership's been great all year, and the expectations have been understood all year. I think clearly halfway through the year versus where we are now, the scoring was off, and the scoring is obviously winning games is harder to do than not losing in soccer. So, that was what we were looking for. We've seen a little bit more of that. I think multiple goals in 5 of our last 10, which is a great trend at this time of the year. But that discipline and that structure and that confidence to hit the net, that's where you have to rely on veterans, especially when a team is struggling to score. It usually doesn't get turned around by the young guys in those moments. So, really a heartfelt compliment to the core of this group that's been around, because having that belief is really hard to maintain when you're struggling, and to maintain the defensive effort, but then to add on to it that little bit more offense was pretty special for this group.
When you look at players performing well, like Albert or Jordan, do you focus on the position they're playing so you can foresee that in the future? Do you just look at them as a player that can play any formation and not specifically set to one position?
Well, I'll let Brian dive way further into that one, because the way I always say it is my job is to build the roster and his job is to coach the roster. And so we work together on how we build the roster, the type of players we bring in, the specific players we bring in, but ultimately it's my job to bring players in. How they play and how he sets them up and what they ask them to do specifically as a staff, that I leave to the coaches. I don't really delve into telling them who to start, how to do it, who to sub, and all that good stuff. We have a lot of conversations weekly, but when I look at players, I love players that can play multiple positions, because I think it gives my staff more choices to make.
So in terms of roster building, though, I mean, you do got to know, okay, I have a cam that can play cam. So when you look at a guy like Albert, do you feel like that's a player where you might not have to go out there and look in the future for a player?
I got you. Yeah, I mean, in terms of 6 month, 12 month, 18 month, all these cliches, 6 month, planning and all these year over year, it's important to know that we have players that can play specific positions. It's important in MLS specifically to have multiple players that can play multiple positions, because we're not yet to a point as a league where we can financially go sign 3 international central midfielders or 3 international wingers and stack that on top of each other position over position. So in terms of having players can play in specific positions, ultimately is very, very important, because there are peripheral positions in every league around the world, depending on which league it is, that are easier to fill than others. Central mid is not one of them in any league.
with the
So Nicholas
with,
Lodeiro.
yeah, with Nicholas then, or sorry, with Nico, you already started to have conversations then with him for him to make the announcement that this is his last?
Yeah, I mean, look, I took this job about a year ago, and I've had really open conversations with staff, with players. There's been multiple conversations with every single person out there on that field. That's how I work. I'm a human first. These guys are humans. These women are humans. We deserve to interact. So there's been a lot of conversations throughout the year. But those are conversations that happen between myself, between players, between individuals. And what it comes down to is Nico's a legend. He's the Mount Rushmore of what this club stands for. And he'll be honored as such when the day comes. He'll be knighted in every way we can. But those conversations are private. We've interacted a lot.
But he made the announcement that this is his last. So you're not ready to confirm that this is his last season then with this?
There's a lot of conversations. No conversation's final. I've spoken to Nico throughout this year 4 or 5, 6 times. They're good conversations.
So,
I was gonna say, Steph in the last game sort of alluded to we know that he's out of contract at the end of this year.
Yeah.
And he sort of just alluded to the idea that it's like, he feels like he's done what he needs to do. What's your feeling on
I don't think
Steph's
he alluded to it.
Fair enough, you said it.
Look, this is contract negotiations. There's guys that go out of contract every year. There's guys that are on options every year. There's a lot of questions to answer. Off-season planning is not something I'm here to talk about today. I mean, we're in the start of the playoff run. And as I've said all year, this is a group I really, really believe in. And this is a group that, frankly, I'm staying focused on what they're trying to achieve right now. But these are things we'll address in the off-season, obviously.
To go back,
During the summer, when we questioned you about not signing players, you said that you were confident that this group was going to make to the playoff. What makes you think, or what do you see in this group of players that make you not to sign any new players?
If you look at what this group was achieving in the first half of the year versus what they weren't, what they were achieving was remarkably structured defensive effort, which is continuity from front to back, back to front. It's collective effort. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of cohesion to prevent goals in this game. I know from history, and I know from the players that are on this roster, and I knew in the middle of the year that that's an anomaly, that this group won't score. And so I was relying on that. I was relying on history. I was relying on the character. I was relying on the quality of people that we have out here. And, they proved themselves right. They didn't prove me right. I put the roster together in January and believed in it then. I just believed in it in July as well.
So to go back to the comments, you said things aren't final with Nico, but in terms of roster building there, how directly, looking at the future of Nico, how directly tied to that is the future of Albert, and specifically that number 10 spot?
Yeah, I mean, look, as the general manager, it's hard for me to tell you one impacts one. This has a lot of roster year-over-year planning, depth. We've got a lot of really talented young players on this team as well that we're trying to find the right fit, the right minutes, the right contributions for. So, yeah, every single player impacts the decisions that are made holistically on the roster. There's no doubt about it. It's not just one for one. It's a set of dominoes. It's the first one falls, the second one falls, the third one falls. These decisions, one impacts the next, and it's a matter of in what order do the decisions get made. More so for me than how does this one thing in a bubble affect this other one.
So how do you go about saying which domino comes first and which domino comes second?
Well, that is my job by definition. So realistically, the domino right now is to focus on where we are. And the domino right now is to focus on this team and what they have accomplished and what they're about to accomplish, because I still think there's something really special here over the next 4 to 6 weeks. And after that, we can get into my job. And we can get into how that impacts what I need to do.
Going back to Nico, obviously he stated that in one way or another his era in Seattle's done, and he focused a lot of that on the fact that he feels there was some indifference towards his contract negotiations. How does that make you feel, and what would you say about that specifically? Maybe the approach that he expected from the club and what did or did not get done.
Again, I'll let Nico talk about his feelings and his experience. We all have, even in a shared conversation, we have a different experience, a different takeaway. But look, he is the man. He is the guy. I'm not going to sit here and say anything about Nico other than what he deserves, which is he's one of the best that's ever been here.
So
and if you'd like to ask Nico, ask Nico. But I'm very confident in my relationship with Nico, with his representation, with the way that we've been as a club, and I'm very comfortable with Nico as a human. And he and I have had many conversations, and will continue to.
So is it safe to say that there is an intent from you to have conversations to potentially have him back next year?
We've had ongoing conversations all year, so yeah. I mean, we've had a lot of conversations, and I understand that I played. I understand there's a lot of different pressure points throughout a season. There's a lot of times people ask questions that you may or may not want to answer, but hey, I've got too much respect for Nico, and this club respects Nico, and always will.
Does the team need Nico Lodeiro for next season, or
The team needs Nico Lodeiro right now.
How do you feel about players making public comments about their contracts, situations, or futures, or wants?
Well, I think I've stood at this table probably 10 or 12 times and made public comments. And so I think it's justifiable. I think these are their livelihoods. I think these are men that care greatly about themselves, their family, their accomplishments, and I think they're allowed to have opinions. And I think they're allowed to be human.
When you
Last couple guys.
When you look at the salary aspect of teams that spend either a top 5 or top 10 in the league, 5 of those didn't even make the playoffs. You guys are in a position where you guys are second. Is that a sense of pride, or is that a sense of you feel like you guys just understand the way the league works in a certain way? Just want to get your take on that.
I'd love to be vindictive and say yes and delve into all the reasons why we're smart. Look, you can spend as much as you want or as little as you want. In order to execute at this level, the players and the coaches have to see eye to eye. The players and the coaches have to show up Saturday to Saturday. And the players and the coaches have to do the work over 10 and a half months. It's long, and it's stressful, and it's draining. And they've got families at home, and there's so many things that go into this that all of the accomplishment belongs to them. Yeah, it takes vision, it takes execution, it takes roster balance, it takes creativity when you go through international call-ups or injuries, but the work and the justification to the work is in the results, and they deserve all the credit because it happens on the field. None of this happens behind a microphone.
I know we asked you this when Messi first got signed. I'll ask you again a few months later. Do you have any idea on if the salary cap rules or financial structure in MLS will change?
Oh, no, and I keep asking because I'd love to know before they change. I'd love to know. Look, I'd be remiss to even start to guess. I'm not the one that's tasked with making those huge decisions on behalf of the league. But as of today, I haven't heard. So I've also pointed out many times I'm not the one in that room making that vote or even included in that vote. So I won't be the first to hear. You guys might hear before me.
Just wanted to real quickly ask you what you've made of Reed's development over the last couple months and what that says about his future.
I think Reed fits into like what is now becoming a annually told story, which is, oh, here's another young player that's gotten minutes, that's proved themselves, that's been in our environment, that's worked with this staff and worked with these teammates and built that trust over time and stepped in and taken their opportunity. He has done a great job this year of taking opportunity because, until a young player does that, it's hard to repeat, right? And we saw last year with Jackson. Jackson got a run of 8 games and in that 9th game struggled. And, that is slowly being weeded out of how our players are being prepared mentally, physically, and how they're preparing and taking these opportunities. That's one thing, Jackson came away last year from a situation where he had one off game and came back really strong. We didn't really see a bad game from Reed, and that's been really promising. And I think it's helping us, it's motivating us, it's keeping us optimistic that maybe we're breaking through as an organization as well. Of maybe we're getting that final phase more correct for some of these young guys. Well, again, they're the ones that have to go out and play under the pressure.
Really quickly on Jackson, how crucial do you think he is heading into playoffs?
Right now, I'd say the entire group. It's hard for me. I think in general, usually you can look at a team at the end of the year and go, that's the player that have to perform. This is really a collective group, and so I think Jackson is one of several players, if not 11, that have to perform for us to do well. I think it's been like this all year when you have a team that sets league record, for goals against average and a goalkeeper that plays the way Steph has. The guys in front of him are doing a great job. It's really hard to individualize it, but I can tell you any one player could make the difference, good or bad, right? And so for us, it's important to see a young player perform at a really high level under what's going to be elevated pressure.